Hello everyone, welcome to our new Prepcast, episode 1, where we'll be talking about the success stories and how do you get placed in a high-paying company. So for the first episode, we have Ishika here, and fun fact, I'm also from VIT Vellore and she's also from VIT Vellore. So Ishika, I'll hand over to you. If you can tell us a bit about you, where you have gotten your job, so that people can understand your credibility or whatever advice you're giving them, why it matters.
So basically, hello guys, I'm Ishika Goel and I'm currently pursuing my BTech Computer Science degree from VIT Vellore. And I have been placed in Barclays GSC, which is they have the office in Pune. And I've been selected for the graduate analysis role. So yeah, I was preparing for my interviews at the time of, I guess, around July and something. And I got selected in October. So yeah, that is.
Can you tell us how much is your salary there?
I have a package of 12 LPA.
And mostly at Barclays, you'll be joining their Pune office, is what you're saying.
Yeah, in the Pune office.
Right. So let's talk about the basic stuff, because most people are kind of following this podcast to understand how do they get placed in high-paying companies, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you give an advice to somebody who is preparing specifically for companies that pay more than 10, 20 LPA and so on? And let's say he's from computer science or non-CS, right? Both of them have to follow the same journey if they are looking to get placed in product-based companies, right? What's the most important thing that these guys should follow?
I mean, according to me, I was kind of struggling when I was preparing for my interview processes and all. But the key thing is basically you should be clear with the basics. If the basics, the foundation, if it's not clear, so you cannot answer your questions during the interview. You will get like hesitant when the interviewer is asking the questions. And you know what, like build up your resume slowly, like step by step. Don't add things which you don't know. So basically, when I was giving my interview, so he was asking me a lot of questions related to my resume. So he asked me like, okay, so you have done this project in this language. So can you like tell me some basic questions? He was asking me like basic questions.
Let's take up all of these one by one. When you say basics, right? If we can talk about specific languages, skills, or courses, like what do you mean by basics? Like C, C++, kya exactly?
I mean, basics, obviously, if we all are doing engineering, so from like the first year, we start with Python. So you can start with Python if this is a base language. So like, I don't know how to tell this, but like take up courses if you're interested with Python. I was doing my C++ and C# course. So I was like saying like, okay, it's basically like an introduction and like step-by-step topics were there. So I was making notes, I was practicing my coding and all of that. So this is how you build your basics. I mean, in my opinion.
So again, it's very similar in my opinion as well. This is what I tell to most people is, okay, pick up, you necessarily have to do C, because what happens in most of the online tests, your MCQs, your pseudocodes and so on are based upon C. So if you just know Python, you'll not be able to answer questions, let's say with pointers or with memory management. That's different in C. So you'll not go to the interview round wherein you can showcase your Python skills, because in the online test, the pseudocode and MCQs were based on C, right? So C and C++, any one of it, and Python or Java, any one of it. So those count for me in basics. I guess DSA is as well. So.
And when I was preparing, so I was also looking for all the OOPS concepts. So, but most of the OOPS concepts are like not in Java. So I guess we should also like look into the other languages and all the constraints in the other languages. Like in Java, there is inheritance is not there like properly, like multiple inheritance and all of those, like when people are preparing for it. But in C++ and in C, all of those concepts are there. So they should know the difference in all of the language, but they should take up only one language as the base language.
Correct. Your primary language to code should be one, and you should know basics in at least 2 or 3 languages.
2 or 3 languages.
Which is like C, C++, any one of those for me, and Python or Java, any one of it. Right?
Yeah.
Coming to data structures itself, right? How much would you say that data structures is important for getting a high-paying job?
If you are looking for a farm company, so I guess DSA over there is like quite. If you know DSA to the core, they know like they want you to know to its core. Honestly, when few of my few of my friends were giving their interviews in Amazon and all those big companies, their main concern was, we will take an interview for 1 hour and it will be totally DSA based. But you know what? When they were actually interviewing them, they were like, they gave only one question, one coding question was there, and rest of it was related to like some OS concepts, some computer network concepts, and all of those. So yeah, DSA is quite important, I would say. But when it comes to like when it comes to you, you should know things that you want to like you want to work for.
Yeah, correct. So that's also happens when I interview. So I've worked in Instamojo, Google, and whatnot, and I've interviewed multiple people.
Mhm.
So there were specific reasons to why we were asking some things, right? Because C, C++, DBMS, and Python to is basics that we have to ask to understand that do you know basics,
Yeah.
but that can also be mucked up by people, right?
Mhm.
Data structures is something that tells me a lot about a person. Ke, are you smart or not?
Mm.
Because that can't be mucked up. It's too vast,
Yeah.
right? So data structures is very important to understand that how can you play around with logical code.
Mhm.
So to segregate people who have mucked up and segregate people who are smart in coding, who know coding. That's one thing. Second thing is competitive coding is we also used to ask a lot in the interviews, and that had a separate reason altogether.
Okay.
So the reason being, so let's say this is one classic example that I give to everybody. So for example, Amazon wants to hire a person, right? They have two people, both of them are good in data structures, right? But I'll necessarily ask them competitive coding is because I want the person who can optimize the code the best. So for example, one person has written a code for searching stuff. Whenever you go to search bar in Amazon, you search, right? So let's say one person has written the code in ON square time complexity, right? And then there's another person who's written in N log N, right? So whenever you are searching something, obviously some computation is happening, and that's happening in AWS and cloud. So to do that computation, you spend money. Like, so for example, the ON square code costs 3 paisa per search, and the log n costs 1 paisa.
1 paisa.
So there's a difference which is very
Obviously.
small, but when you take about the complexities of scale, there are 200 million times people are searching on Amazon in each and every day.
Yes.
So it comes down to that one person who's written bad code can cost the company like millions of money in a day.
Oh.
Just because of that. So which is why competitive coding is important. And DBMS is something that has to necessarily be asked, because even if you work as a front-end developer or a back-end developer or a SAP or Salesforce or whatnot, you will always be connecting to the database. Now, let's go back to the second part of the introduction that you gave is resume.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of times what I have seen in the resume is people write stuff that they don't know. If you can talk about that.
Okay, so let me give you an example. Okay, so first I made my resume and I wrote like I know Java and all. I mean, to be honest, I'm a little bit scared of Java. Okay, so when I was giving my interview for so and so company, he asked me one question related to, and it was a very basic question to be honest. But I thought, because I knew that I am scared of Java, so when he was asking me questions, I basically stumbled on it. So then I realized, and then he went into like more deep concepts and all. So I was like, no, sir, I really don't know. And that made a very bad impression of me in front of the interviewer. So then at that day, I decided, no, Ishika, you should just stick to your resume. You should stick to your own skills. Whatever you know should be there on your resume. It doesn't matter if you know like a very high-end coding or if you don't know coding at all, but you should always stick to your resume.
This reminds me, this also happened with my younger brother, who's also from VIT, by the way.
Oh.
He was doing it from IT,
Okay.
right? So he was getting interviewed for Deloitte. Now he had written Java in his resume, even though his primary language to code was Python, and he knew C++ as well. Like these two are like his primary and secondary languages. And Java, he just knew because he had learnt in as a subject in his college, but it was never his primary language to code. He had written that in his resume, and for about 20-25 minutes, the interviewer saw, because Java is written, he was kind of trying to ask him questions related to that, and he was unable to answer anything about it, like string builder and whatnot, basic concepts. And he was like, sir, I don't know. And he eventually got rejected, right? Even though he got rejected from Deloitte, now he's working in KPMG. So which is kind of a similar company, but again, people should not mention. My personal experience, we were earlier also talking about it, is that I wrote PHP because for a couple of days I studied it from some online blog, right? In my resume. And the first thing that the interviewer asked me was, what is the full form of PHP? And I was unable to answer that. It's hypertext preprocessor. It doesn't even start from
with
P. So that was pretty embarrassing. I remember the interview was for a company called as Mahindra Comviva. and I was pretty embarrassed. Obviously, I was bound to get rejected as well. One more thing is because for a fact that I know in VIT, almost 50 to 60% of the subjects have projects in it. Your out of 100 marks, 50 marks are related to just projects. So if you can talk about the importance of project and if it did help you in terms of clearing your interview with Barclays and or any other company.
I mean, when I was interviewing for Barclays, so after my introduction, like the introduction is the basic question, right? And he asked me like, do you have any projects that you have done in your courses and all? So I was actually interning at some company there, and I was building upon a project. So I told him, and also one major thing, the introduction and the way you tell your project also matters. And if you have a project in your hand that you have built it by your own, own self, that is so much important, because when he'll ask you questions, you should know the basics and all the deep code. So when he was asking me questions like, okay, so you did that, so I was able to answer him, and so that is why he knew, okay, this girl knows coding.
Did he ask you to show your project also?
I insisted. I said, "Sir, I can show you," but I guess he was in a bit hurry, so he didn't ask me for it. But yeah, when the way I introduced my project, he got the whole idea, like what was my project, what languages, what was my tech stack, and all of that. So yeah.
So because that's something that I've seen in companies which pay 30, 40 lakhs and more, is that they always want to see the project. So there are two things. So for example, even before you apply to a particular company and just send in your resume, you get shortlisted based upon your resume. So for example, you will apply at Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Flipkart. 96% of the people will not even hear back, and they'll just say, "Okay, yaar, I did apply, but I guess it was an expired link and the company is not actively recruiting." But actually, what happened is your resume got rejected. Why? Because your resume did not have enough projects. Second thing is, it did not have the GitHub link of that project wherein you've uploaded the code. Because obviously, if somebody from a good college who knows how to build a good resume has uploaded the GitHub code, has also given a link of a Netlify app wherein the project is hosted and they can actually see it. So obviously they'll shortlist them for the interview on a higher priority basis than others. And even so, in interviews, like in Amazon, right, there are 4 to 5 interviews. The first interview is about technical interview, which comes down to your basics like C, C++, Java, Python, and DSA. That's it, and DBMS a little, right? The second one is called as techno managerial, which is 5 to 10% DBMS, DSA, and the rest 90% just projects. They'll be like, open up your project, show me your laptop or share your screen, show me the code, remove this line, let's go back. And then he'll say, why did you use this, why did you use that? And then he'll try to include data structures if he can in that particular stuff.
Yes.
So that also becomes important, because a lot of times what people say, sir, I've written the project in my resume, but I lost the code because my computer got formatted.
Yes.
And then you lose out upon the opportunity and immediately get rejected. Or they say, sir, it was a group project, my friend has it. So that's almost very embarrassing, and you'll almost be certainly getting your rejection there.
I mean, as you were talking about GitHub, even my project is there on the GitHub link. I made a proper repository and all. And you know what, like people are studying in like very good colleges today, and all of the courses have that project. So I think like even if the project is at a very small level, but you should push that project on the GitHub. And even if you don't have like all the source code and all, you can fork the project on the GitHub and all. So I think so, like making up and building up your GitHub repositories is also very important, in my opinion. Have to do this.
How much do you think your college CGPA matters?
Yeah, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
No, I mean, first, for few companies, yes, CGPA matters. There are some criteria, there are some constraints that few companies come and they want like only students for like 9 CGPA and 9 CGPA plus, but that percentage is around 2% of the whole, like 2% of the placements. But rest of, like for Barclays, the criteria was 6 CGPA. I mean, 6 CGPA is a CGPA that every engineering student can maintain. And
so basically, just to attend the interview process or the online test, just for the cutoff, the CGPA matters to a very minimal level. But does it matter at all in your interview? So for example, did the interview judge you based upon, oh my god, you have low CGPA?
No, because see, I think sometimes people have their own things and own problems. Because of that, they cannot cope up with the college studies. But there is one friend of mine who is very good at coding, but his CGPA was what, 6.7 or 6.8, I guess. But he knew all his technical skills, his basics were very clear. And when the interview was asked me, he was so impressed. He was like, you know what, we are giving you a direct full-time offer. Not even the internship. He was selected for the full-time offer.
That's true.
It's
that's
all your
true.
skills.
Because it's basically a lot of times whenever I interview people, I kind of know with a very high degree that would you get selected or not just by looking at your resume, right? There are direct cues in your resume. So for example, a lot of time people mention Excel, Microsoft Word, and so on. So I'm like, there was no need to mention it. I wouldn't hire you because you know Excel or you do not know Excel, right? That's a skill that you can acquire. I'm hiring you as a developer. So that all Corel Draw, MS Paint and all of that should be removed. In fact, that space should be taken up by a project. So I want to see like 4 or 5 different projects and different skills, those GitHub links and so on. If somebody has that, good ranking on CodeChef and so on also helps me to understand that what level of questions can I ask you in the interview. So for example, even if somebody has one first rank on CodeChef or very highest rating on lead code and so on, I wouldn't necessarily hire him just because of that. I'll get an idea that this is the level of questions that I can ask him, and I'll make my judgment based upon that. But that kind of certainly helps me to give me an advantage of what kind of questions that I can ask. So give me a little cue of that, and also comes down to certifications, right? Because as we were earlier discussing, your CGPA does not matter. As a company, I want to hire somebody who's going outside their college curriculum and doing courses. So for example, doing courses in artificial intelligence, machine learning, ethical hacking, cybersecurity, blockchain, and so on, because that gives me an idea that he's a self-motivated person, because technology keeps on shifting every 5-6 years. There were people who were doing Java, and then now Java is not so much used, and then people are shifting to Node.js or Python and so on, or even they are shifting their domain completely to, let's say, data analytics or data science, right? So you want to upskill. Even if you're 35-year-old, it may happen that the company wants you to upskill and move to a different domain altogether. So that gives me also a cue that if you're doing enough certifications, you're somebody who is agile enough to focus upon or to move to a different domain whenever the industry requires them to be.
Yeah, Atulya, I mean, you are correct. Certifications does matter because it shows, like as you were saying, it shows your motivation towards coding or in technology. And yeah, you are correct. I mean, technology is shifting every day by day. So you should be updated. And also, yes, when during the interview process, if few of the interviews like they ask like, do you are aware about all the technical things and all, so yes, you should always say yes. And yeah, I mean, you should follow the news as well in my opinion.
Certification also, in my opinion, help in one way is because your projects. So for example, if you do good certification from a good website, for example, Prepcast Prime, right? For each of the courses and skill section that we have, each of those courses have approximately 7 to 8 minor mini projects, right? And 2 to 3 main very big projects and 1 capstone project. So how certification will also help you is, even if you have not created your own projects with the help of your college or with the help of your self-motivation, these certifications will help you that, okay, I've done 2-3 projects that you can also showcase in your resume, and you can actually write. Obviously, you'll be writing the code as well, and you can upload it on GitHub and Netlify and so on. So that also helps.
And you know what, I would actually like to add up to it. If you really want to go and be a part of a very good company, I guess research papers also come in handy. Like writing a research paper also gives you a plus point, saying ki, oh, this person is actually very focused upon developing the technologies. So I guess, I mean, I know like writing a research paper is not a cup of tea, to be honest. And I mean, there's a lot of research. You have to do a lot of talks with the professors
in
and all.
IEEE and so
Yeah,
on.
in IEEE and all. And it is not easy to publish a paper at a very high scale, honestly. But yes, writing a research paper or even writing a criticism research paper also helps you, because you would be very
I never wrote one, but I certainly think that people who do would give me a cue that he's bloody smart, right? That's what I'll get, that okay, you're kind of smart, gives me a cue that you'll do well if we hire you, so on. So I guess that's pretty much about it. I want to keep the podcast short so that people don't have to watch like a 1 hour podcast and can understand 15-20 minutes mein what it takes to get a high paying job at Barclays and other companies as well. So thank you so much, Ishika, and anything that you would like to add at the very end?
I mean, I just want to give you like at the end of every chapter, there's a points to remember, right? So it's basically like just clear your basics and talk confidently. Like talking to the interviewer, also like the communication skills helps a lot. And always stick to your resume. That's it.
Yeah. Only mention things that you know in your resume. That's the most important factor. So thank you guys, and we'll be doing more such prepcasts. If you want us to do them a little more, please make sure that you comment down below and let us know, so we'll get motivation to do them a lot more. Right? Thank you.